These new TV schedules are going to be the beginning of the season, college football season next year, right? We'll start it off with our week 0. We'll go through all these games, and then we'll talk about some media deals, and we'll really get into it. Just bear with me. Slow walk with me. So first off, though, in week 0, Jackson State versus South Carolina State in Atlanta is going to be on ABC at 7 p.m. Eastern. A pretty big game, understanding that that is a week 0 game. Not many college football teams play in week 0. Be real. So this is a chance for HBCU football to get the spotlight early in the season. We're going to get an early look at Coach T.C. Taylor and Jackson State, and we'll get a chance to see Coach Buddy Pugh and his stars at defensive line in Jablonski Green and Patrick Goldbold. So we also have a Division II matchup that's going to be coming up about a week after that. Get to see our SIAC friends, Fort Valley State and Tuskegee. We'll get to see my boy, Kelvin Durham, show up on ESPNU and do what he does best, which is throw for monster yards against a Tuskegee team that's just pretty formidable. This looks like a SIAC championship preview early in the season at around week 1. So these ESPNU games are pretty important, I will say, because ESPNU is a channel that is primarily dedicated to coverage of college athletics and is also used as an additional outlet for general ESPN programming. But ESPNU is for college football. There are quite a few games on this list that are going to be on ESPNU, and that's good. This is a good thing. We want to stay off of ESPN Plus. We want to be on ESPNU and ESPN2, right? So even after Fort Valley State, we get another matchup between Jackson State. Jackson State has 2 nationally televised games this season already. Shout out to y'all, Jackson State. Numbers. So they're going to play Florida A&M for the Orange Blossom Classic. That would be a great matchup in Miami. Then we get Mississippi Valley and Bethune-Cookman. They'll face off against each other November 4th on ESPNU. And then Grambling State and Arkansas Pine Bluff will also play on ESPNU. A couple more matchups. We got UAPB, Arkansas Pine Bluff, also plays against Alabama A&M. I believe that's a midweek game. Then the game that I talked about a week ago, well, actually not a week ago, 2 weeks ago, North Carolina Central and South Carolina State, along with North Carolina Central and Morgan State, have both been flexed in the nationally televised games. They're going to be ESPN games. I spoke about the Thursday matchup looking like a spot for North Carolina Central to get their time to shine on national TV, and they were given it. ESPNU will be covering both of those games. It's pivotal. It's actually great for the MEAC. So in talking about these different TV games and games that are going to be played, the last game is going to be played that's also going to be on national TV that we know so far is Virginia Union and Morehouse. They're going to play each other in Canton for the HBCU Hall of Fame game. So that's the rest of our slate. As you can see on the screen, most of these games are by ESPN, right? They are going to be presented on ESPN family of networks, nationally televised, nationally syndicated. So we're going to take a look at some of these media deals now. Let's flip it on over. Let's talk about some of these, right? So now these are the different media deals within HBCU football and HBCU sports, right? These are the HBCU conferences deal individually. So the MEAC in 2018 struck a deal with ESPN. The SWAC has I don't know, this is an under-table deal or what, but it's hard to find the details on this. But they signed a deal with ESPN through 2026. The SIAC just signed their deal in 2021 with ESPN that will go through 2027. And the CIAA has not struck a deal with ESPN for football programming. They've only struck a deal for basketball programming and one other sport, but not for football. For football, they're going to use CIAA SN, which is a conference-run network, subscription-based network. It costs around $26 a month if you'd like to watch any CIAA game. So those are the HBCU deals. If you look across the college football landscape, you'll notice that pretty much every other school in the same footprint, whether it be the South or the East Coast, also has an ESPN deal. If you look at, we can look at the big conferences, go to the smaller ones, right? The SEC, ESPN deal. Sunbelt, ESPN deal. ACC, ESPN deal. American Atlantic Conference, ESPN. Missouri Valley Conference signed a 10-year deal in 2016 exclusively for ESPN Plus. Like, that's it. North Dakota State, South Dakota State, all those guys. They signed a deal with ESPN in 2016 to only show games on ESPN Plus. That's it. Not ESPN2 or U or nothing like that. Other conferences, you got the Big Sky. And what they did with ESPN, they struck a deal with ESPN. And in their deal with ESPN, they would like 2 guaranteed football games on national TV every year. So the game they're going to have on national TV this year, it's going to be the Montanas, of course. One will take on Idaho. The other one will take on Sacramento State. And then Southland Conference also is exclusively with ESPN. The HBCUs, the SWAC, the MEAC, SIAC, making deals with ESPN, there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. I think that when it comes to ESPN, a lot of schools are looking to get more exposure. They use ESPN like how the Missouri Valley Conference uses it. Let's just have our games available to our fans via ESPN Plus rather than how much money. I'm not really going to talk money and different numbers here, but I will get into the fact that the SIAC and certain other conferences like the Big Sky guarantee the fact that they'll get ESPN games. Through these different deals, the SIAC guarantees that they're going to have 22 football games a year on the ESPN family of networks. That's something you should add into every one of your deals. The SWAC doesn't have that in their deal, though, right? But they have other national televised games. So it's going to take a little more deep diving to figure out the ins and outs of all these deals. But I will say, though, when it comes to ESPN, ESPN might not be the big bad villain that we think it is. I think ESPN has casted a blanket over all of college football. And because of that, all college football teams deal with ESPN in different ways, in the best way that they can, honestly. So let's move it on. From this, we'll now get into some Southern and